Hey, it's DBJ, and we are going to go back in time. We're going to go back in time to a review of Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. Yes, that is a $5 charge right there. At a place called Half Price Bookstore. Got this a while ago, but anyway, brought back a lot of memories. All you OSR people out there who have heard of it, or seen it, or played it when it was original, love this thing. It's one of the oddest, strangest sandbox-styled games, originally designed for a tournament. I don't have any particular specific knowledge of this, but I believe it came out as a test before Gamma World, or to incorporate Gamma World using the Dungeons & Dragons system to do a sci-fi setting, and was used and designed for an Origins 2 as a tournament module, and then eventually adapted for specifically AD&D, and a great adventure. Now, if you take a good look at the front picture of this, you'll see strange color scheme there, because it seemed like they used the same color scheme for the monster as for the player characters on the front cover, but you'll see what looks like maybe a fighter using a laser pistol. What the hell? Well, this was one of the first times that back in let me see if I can see the date on this, this was produced in 1980 and 81. This is one of the first times that a module like this was a science fiction that was introduced into the world of Greyhawk. Yes, this adventure took place in the Barrier Peak Mountains in Greyhawk. If I can remember the map, it was to the west. Barrier Peak Mountains that separated the lands that are the Sea of Dust from the western. There were western mountains, and to the west of those mountains was the Sea of Dust, and then the rest of Greyhawk was to the east and filled up the entire map. So this was that game. Now I'm going to show you some parts and bits in it, and talk about why this was so important at the time, why it's legendary, and there's that number, the S3 module. All right. Well, the reason why it's legendary, of course, is because of the science fiction portion of it. But not only was it science fiction, it was also a sandbox. And what I mean by sandbox was that you entered into this, what essentially was a spaceship that landed in Greyhawk in the Barrier Peak Mountains, was covered for years. It could have been centuries, who knows. And then eventually something happened, a doorway opens up, essentially a portal, and lo and behold, the player characters enter into a starship. The descriptors in the module, 2 books that came out with it that were in this module. One was a book of nothing but pictures. Yes, how amazing is that? Is that a mind flayer? Is that an Illithid with a grenade in its hand? Using what the hell? Sweetness, pure and simple. All right. So there were many things in the game where the characters walked in and they just encountered everything. They went where they wanted to go. They stumbled upon things, and what was amazing was that the way it was described, each of the things that the game master would describe, depending on the rooms they go into, was not described in such a way to make it easy for the player characters to realize this. So, in other words, instead of saying you walk into the bridge of a starship, it was described more or less like you walk into a room with glass panels and strange tables and chairs. All right. Now, many of these items, the items that the characters would find, they had to figure out how they worked. And so in this module, they came up with these flow charts, these if-then flow charts, right? And on these if-then flow charts, in various locations around the ship, you would go to one of these flow charts, and it would describe what the character was doing. So, in other words, if you got onto the bridge of the ship and pushed some random buttons, you would go to the flow chart. You had a location to start at. You'd hit start. You start rolling dice. It would take you to certain areas, and then we had a chart to tell you what kind of effects they would have. Most of the effects were relatively benign, although what would happen is random doors would open and close. Monsters would be loosed from their cages, and especially if you picked up scientific items like weapons and armor and grenades, they had a good chance of going off, discharging their uses, or just becoming completely useless in general. Also, in this one book, I'm going to show you some of these pictures and start to flip through it. Some of these items you may think that you would recognize. Hallways, creatures, things like that in elevators and such. Oh, there we go. That's the way it looks. Some of these things you may say, well, hey, I recognize what that is, but they were very deceptive in how they were described. You know, these robots that were in this starship were considered like golems. You know, great stuff. Veggie Pygmies. Throughout the starship, a lot of the creatures that were inside had a chance to mutate over the years and kill off the crew, which were human-like, but at the same time, crazy antics in this thing. Crazy antics. Boom, 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 boom. There's some more pictures. Also, because most of these things, you know, you see dead crew members there, you see things like that. It opened up the idea that the medieval world was a planet and not just an infinite plain of, you know, desert and ocean. That the world of Oerth, if I'm pronouncing it right, Oerth, Oerth. Sorry guys, I hope I'm pronouncing that right for Greyhawk. That it actually had a cosmology, and that there were things that came from the outer worlds. Now, of course, anybody who was into Cthulhu at the time would know that by reading about Cthulhu and that this was a being that came from a distant location, usually otherworldly, as opposed to being other-dimensional. And this, I couldn't believe all the images here, the pictures, just all pictures of just about everything. And some of this stuff is really cool. Even though this is a picture of like a diving suit, I don't know, that just looks really cool to me. Giant leeches and such. I don't know. That's just very awesome. Very awesome. And they even have pictures of like some of the, hey, here's one of you, listen, player character, that's what happened to you when you went to take a nap in the jungle arena. And they also have some full color images of these mechanical golems running around performing various duties. There's the overgrown aquatic lab, which also was something that I really appreciated, which was very odd, was that they had like an aquatic lab. Oh, here's a really nasty creature there. 3-armed creature, able to drop down and hang with his last arm. And then here's one also. Fiend Folio, I believe, is where this creature was also enhanced. See the little rabbit? See the little cutie? And then, yeah, that's what it looks like. That is exactly what it looks like. That is a Gygax a-hole monster right there. Everybody wants to go pet the rabbit and get in trouble. There's even a portion in this module where the player characters activate something, the front window opens up and they see a star screen, and the player characters swear they are traveling into space. The whole ship starts to rock. You hear like thrusters going off. You see them leaving Earth. It's incredible. Although the act of actually leaving was fake. There's a boxing robot. Great to go up against somebody's barbarian or something like that and get knocked the hell out. There was a training robot to teach martial arts. There's a fencing robot in one of the athletic centers. Weightlifting robot. No, great stuff. Great stuff. Robots, and there is a, I believe it's properly pronounced, Bullet, not a bullet. I always call them bullets. I don't know why. It looked like his bullet, spelled like bullet, but I believe it's Bullet. And very, very comical picture right there when the robots open up a transit hatch and throw the no longer sleeping and in stasis Bullet right on top of the player characters, who were just like, mother, father, sister, brother, what the hell? Yeah, really strange there. And then a lot of the equipment too that they had for this module, you couldn't quite tell. I mean, done specifically, of course. A lot of these things weren't designed as pistols. It's like, well, what? How do you hold that? What is that? How is it supposed to operate? And there are pictures of how some of these things look. But yeah, you weren't sure I mean, is it a weapon? Is it not? I'm not really certain. This item right here was actually a hypodermic thing, spray bottle that to heal you. So you could very easily try to test this thing out and end up spraying out your healing potion, or whatever you want to call a healing spray, without realizing exactly what it was. There were plenty of grenades and tricorders and all kinds of stuff like that. But the other thing that they showed in here was, lastly, a cross section of the ship. And with this cross section here, this entire portion was open into what was essentially like overgrown jungle. And right in here, these two channels here are actually deep water. And in the center, there's an elevator where you can see and look out into the deep waters that were all murky and such. And then you had various levels here. There were anti-gravity lifts to take you from lift to lift. Great adventure. Classically done. One of the weak points in this were some of these maps. And I say weak points because, for example, to me, this map and this map had more of a general, it was more organized. The rooms told you what they were for, and why they existed, even though I think this map was quite a bit busy for Starship. But you also had double-sided maps, such as these two, so there were 6 levels on the ship. This one makes no sense to me. Yeah. Yes, if you turn it upside down, it looks like egg. Like what? Who designs a ship with like these random walls and things in a way? To me, it just didn't make much sense, but they had to fill it out. But, you know, incorporating where you were in the ship and getting around and finding the lifts and random monsters. Here were the more or less the upper levels where you could look down onto the jungle area with that viewing tower that's sunk in the middle of the water. Great adventure. Wouldn't be too hard to translate this into just about, except for THACO, not too hard to translate this game into, this module into a game. But yes, produced in 1980 and 81. I probably saw it in 82 or 3 and actually played in this adventure. A great example of a sandbox where you had enough to give players. I wouldn't suggest a game master design this by hand at all, But a great example of, hey, here's a place you can go in, discover what you want, got rules for you to be in there. It was limited enough that the dungeon itself was enclosed. It only has 6 levels in it. Those levels were not numbered like you start out at level 1 and then level 2 and level 3. This adventure is actually made for 8th to 12th level characters. Instead, there were 6 levels of the ship. They could travel to any level of the ship they wanted to. They could stay in any portion of the ship they wanted to. But the greatest thing is that once they started messing with things, there was a pressure, in sense of a pressure cooker for this adventure, because as they started traveling around, they of course are just disturbing the new ecology of this spaceship, and so disturbing the life forms who go to look for them. And as a matter of fact, they do have the stats for, let's see if I can show you the picture and then I'll find the stats. They do have the stats for the Mind Flayer. Let's see if I can find what they say about the Mind Flayer here in the back of the thing. They also have the stats for a lot of these weapons. I did mean to show you this. How these weapons are held and carried. Very odd, but unique enough that the player characters may not know how to use them, and therefore shoot themselves in the eye. Always great fun whenever you're doing any of these things, using any of these items. There's everything from the robots. Like, for example, let's go with one of the androids. Police robot, power discs, analyzers. Oh, the stats are in another book, in the other book. These are the stats for the Mind Flayer right here. But anyway, it says AC 5, movement of 12 inches, hit dice 8+4, hit points 43, 4 tentacle attacks, and Mind Blast, 90% magic resistance. Psionic strength is 257. Got a hell of a lot of other things. It is likely that this creature was taken when it was using probability travel. It is kept on the ship by the force fields. During the course of its living upon the vessel, the Mind Flayer has accumulated an orange card. Yes, they do have cards to try to get into different rooms. You had to match up the card to the color on the door. A blaster pistol with 1 charge, a portable spotlight, 1 poison and 2 sleep gas grenades, 37 base, 10 gold piece gems, 5 pieces of jewelry, etc., etc. And, of course, the Mind Flayer has lived here and cannot use its probability travel to get off the ship. So, it goes after the player characters and all those kind of things. There's so many things in here. There's lurkers. There's a doppelganger that's on the ship. And they make suggestions as to how to use the doppelganger, pulling players aside and letting them know that maybe they were taken out and then they replace one of the party members. Great stuff. The physical fitness android, yelling out randomly things like "work up a sweat" and catch Butterfingers. Hey, have some hustle, and you'll never make the team that way. All that kind of stuff. Great fun stuff. Great way to utilize some of the plant-like creatures. Lots of lurkers and shambling mounds and what's the assassin vine and stuff like that. There's even a classic picture. This is where that picture came from of the intellect devourer looking at the party, getting ready to jump down somebody's throat, take you out with some psionics and crawl down your throat, become a chest burster or something like that. Great stuff. I would say this is second only to Tomb of Horrors in its legendariness. So if you ever see it or someone ever wants to run it or convert it or something like that, great fun. Yes, it's dated in the sense that, a lot of the secrets are given away just like Tomb of Horrors, but who knows? Especially new players might want to take a look at this, and for your older players, just a little look back in time, and I thought I'd share that with you guys. So anyway, DBJ, And I'm out, and as always, create new adventures, or bring back the old ones. Always create something new out of the old. You know, don't throw this away. It's awesome. Somebody threw this away for $5, so I got it myself. It's all dog eared and everything like that, but I'm sure somebody will make at least one post for like $20 or more for this thing. Given the right incentive, I might even give it up. So anyway, DBJ, and I'm out. Thanks, guys.